Yo, dudes, the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, join it or something.
Hey everyone, Lucamus Prime here. So, it's time for a franchise ranking video today. And today, guys, I'm going to be ranking the Trilogy, which is one of my favourites of all time. And this trilogy, guys, I'm going to be ranking is for none other than Back to the Future. So, yeah, now, I'm going to be honest, guys, and say that this trilogy is my favourite work of director Robert Zemeckis. And this was definitely a really hard franchise to rank because, in my opinion, none of these movies are bad. In my opinion, they're all good movies, great and good. So, this franchise ranking will be from best to weakest because, in my opinion, like I said, there's no bad movie in this ranking. There's just one which I think is the weakest. So, yeah. And, guys, so this is my personal opinion. So, if you guys don't agree, that's absolutely fine. But please respect my opinion just like I respect yours. Okay, so, now, starting with what is my favourite. This is really hard to decide, guys. But when I look back at the movies, I think my personal favourite out of this trilogy, guys, is going to be 4 Back to the Future Part 2. Released in 1989, of course, directed by Zemeckis himself. So, I really love this movie, guys. I consider it one of the greatest sequels of all time. Absolutely brilliant movie in every way. So, some of the good qualities I could say. There's so many things I love about a movie. So, I love the cast of a movie. So, for example, I definitely do love Michael J. Fox as the main character, Marty McFly. I consider this to be his best role, my personal favourite role of his. He just does such a phenomenal job playing Marty, and no one could play a role better than him. No one. I also, as well, adored Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown. Doc is definitely my favourite role of him, absolutely. And in my opinion, no one can ever top him as Doc. No one. And there's other great characters as well that I do also love. For example, I love the addition as well of Leah Thompson as Marty McFly's mother. She's definitely a very good addition to her cast. She does a very good job in the role as Lorraine Baines McFly. And I also love the addition of a villainous character who is probably my favourite villain of the franchise, guys, which is Biff Tannen, who is played by Thomas F. Wilson. I consider this to be his best role, my personal favourite of his, and he does a very good job playing Biff. And in this movie as well as reprising his role as Biff, who in this movie is now an old, he also plays other relatives of his, like descendants, ancestors, etc., being characters like Griff Tannen and also Gertrude Tannen. So, yeah. And he does a very good job playing all different versions of all different ancestors and descendants, yeah. And the same can also be applied to Michael J. Fox as Marty, because he also plays his Marty McFly Jr. and Marlene McFly. So he's very talented at playing all the McFlys. He's brilliant in the role. I also love the addition of James Talker as Mr. Strickland, who is the teacher, and of course he refers to the misbehaving people as slackers, which is definitely, a pretty iconic line in a franchise where into slackers, and yeah. I also like the addition as well of Elizabeth Shue as Jennifer Parker, who is Marty's girlfriend. In my opinion, she was a better actress for Jennifer than the actress who played her in the first movie. I'm not saying the first actress was bad, Claudia Wells, because I feel like she didn't have very much to do. But I like Elizabeth Shue more. I think she's a way more interesting choice, and I think it's my favourite role of her, alongside her role as Allie in the first Crikey movie, and yeah. And also as well, when it comes as well to Marty's father, George, he was played by Jeffrey Wiseman in this movie, and they did a very good job, disguising the fact that he's no longer played by Crispin Glover, which is, which was one of the controversies, with regards to the cast, because he got replaced, and yeah, I believe Crispin sued the director for being replaced, and yeah. But we did a good job disguising him with all makeup. It was pretty good, yeah. Also, the story is also brilliant, in my opinion, guys. I love the story, so... I love how, compared to other time travel movies, especially the previous movie in this trilogy, which shows you what happens if you travel back in time, I love how this movie does something different, where it shows what happens if you travel forwards in time. And in my opinion, this movie lives up to a title of Back to the Future as well, definitely, because the character literally goes to the future, which is the year 2015. So yeah. And speaking of 2015, guys, I really love how seeing how they imagine future to be when you compare it to the real 2015, you know, because, like, flying cars, hologram posters, yeah, it's really funny to see, really, and yeah. And I also, as well, really adored the music by Alan Silverstreet. Like, oh, wow, the music was absolutely amazing, guys. The main theme is also one of the most iconic themes I've ever heard, and one of Alan Silverstreet's best music scores, in my opinion, alongside his music for the Avengers movies he's doing music for, and for many other movies he's done the music for, as well. Definitely very iconic music, and also, the DeLorean time machine is one of the most iconic vehicles in cinematic history as well. I love the DeLorean, such a great vehicle. I really love it. And there's also many iconic quotes, like in this movie, there's like, roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads. and of course, Doc Brown also has a very iconic catchphrase, being Great Scott. I love that catchphrase. And yeah, so and the story was executed so well. It was really brilliant, and yeah, absolutely brilliant movie. And what's even cool, guys, we even got a cameo appearance by Elijah Wood in this movie, which launched his career, which was really awesome. I did like that. And I also, as well, really love the joke about Jaws, guys, because at one point when Marty's exploring in 2015, he sees a hologram poster for I think it's Jaws 19, yeah, and it was definitely really funny to see. And like, I love how it made a joke referencing that the Jaws franchise has gone downhill since the first movie. And Marty even says that the shark still looks fake. So that was so satisfying because, as you guys may or may not know, I, of course, despise the sequels to the first Jaws movie. I think they're absolute abominations and unnecessary sequels. And yeah, I love how this movie was, you know, telling a joke about it. It was very satisfying, yeah. I definitely love that joke about Jaws. It was brilliant. So yeah, I love this sequel, guys. I think it's the best of the trilogy, and I will give it a full-blown 10 out of 10. Yeah, I really adore this movie. Absolutely brilliant movie in every way. And then we go on to what is my second favourite of the trilogy, guys. So my second favourite trilogy, guys, is going to be the first one, Back to the Future, released in 1985, directed, of course, by Zemeckis. And yeah, also a great movie like the second movie, guys. And yeah, I definitely do love this movie as well. So yeah, now, all about this movie, guys, is you know, it presents a very clear and well-written story about time travels, and it's done really well. And it's done for like the comedic part of it, because it does have really funny moments, guys. It's really funny. And like, for example, the opening scene with Marty getting launched by his guitar, when the sound is louder, is definitely really funny. I definitely love that. This movie, of course, also, you know, helped, the actors become really, really popular actors, you know, like Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, etc. And yeah, absolutely brilliant. And the DeLorean, of course, became a very iconic vehicle thanks to this movie. And the music by Alan Silverstreet is also very iconic and memorable. I definitely love it. And it was also really cool having included like some pop songs. For example, The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News, which is definitely a really great song to listen to. I definitely love that song. And there's also many great quotes. So I've already mentioned Doc Brown's catchphrase, Great Scott. Definitely really brilliant. And the posters of this franchise are so iconic, and this one is definitely no exception. It's a really great poster, guys. I love the poster very much. And Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd in these movies have just absolutely excellent chemistry. Like, because of their chemistry, it's why I can't imagine anyone playing roles other than those two actors. They're irreplaceable. And yeah. And the supporting cast was also very good. For example, I've already mentioned that Biff is such a great villain, my favourite villain in the franchise, and Thomas F. Wilson nails it as him. And of course, I do also love Crispin Glover and Leah Thompson as Marty's parents as well. But they're definitely great additions to the cast, absolutely. They play the roles so well in this. And I love as well how it also teaches a lesson which you got to be careful of, you know, to not interfere in the past, really, because it can have serious consequences. And yeah, this movie does a very good job of showing that, yeah. It's done really well, in my opinion, how it teaches that lesson where you got to be careful in the past because you can change the future. It's a really great lesson right there. Absolutely brilliant, and yeah. However, when it comes to bad quality, so there's a couple of reasons why this is my second favourite, not my favourite. For example, I mean, aside from the fact that, you know, some of these special effects may not have aged very well to the standards of 2022, you know, which is understandable because it's a 1985 movie, I feel like there's some things which question why it's rated PG, because it's rated PG, guys. For example, at one point in the movie, Doc swears, which is, you know, not very appropriate for children. And furthermore, as well, one of the characters also, of course, gets shot which is pretty violent for a movie that's supposed to be aimed at children as well. And yeah, and yeah, there's quite a few inappropriate things in this movie, guys. Some which are in it, which I'm not going to say because it's inappropriate for children. But yeah, those are some examples I could say. And I guess you could say that Strickland can be unlikable, but he's still a good character to play very well by James Tolkien. I still think it's his best role. And yeah. And there's also as well a plot hole with regards to Marty's parents, because for some strange reason they don't appear to remember Marty being the person who got them together at the dance. So yeah, which is quite confusing. And also the title is also quite questionable, because the title is Back to the Future, yet in this movie Marty and Doc travel to the past. So yeah, it's basically Back to the Past, not Back to the Future. So yeah, if you get what I mean. But I can let with bad quality slag, guys, because I still love this movie. It's still a very great start to a franchise, and probably my favourite movie of the year 1985, to be exact as well, I think, as well. I don't think to call it any movies from the year 1985, so how do I rate it out of 10? I'd rate this movie a flat out 10 out of 10 as well, just like the second movie, but I do prefer part 2 more. And now on to what I think is the weakest of this trilogy, but not a bad movie, like I said, because in my opinion, none of these movies are bad movies, they're good movies. The weakest, in my opinion, will be Back to the Future Part 3, released in 1990, released 1 year after Part 2, because they filmed Part 2 and Part 3 back to back, so yeah. So, once again, a very good movie, but still weaker than the first two, in my opinion. So the good qualities is, the cast is still excellent, like, Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. They're still great in their roles, absolutely. And plus, what's also cool is Thomas F. Wilson also returns as another descendant of Biff. No, so I think it's an ancestor of Biff, yeah, whatever. So he returns in this movie as a new ancestor of Biff, which is, I think he's called Mad Dog Tannen, which is Bufford Mad Dog Tannen, yeah. So as well surprising as well as Biff, he appeared as Bufford Tannen, yeah, nicknamed Mad Dog, and yeah. And of course, James Tolkien also appeared as Marshall James Strickland as well. And yeah, and plus, we got a new addition to the cast, guys, which was the character Clara Clayton, played by Mary Steenburgen. She was definitely a very good addition to the cast, guys. A very good supporting character. In my opinion, I really liked her. Very good supporting character. She did a very good job in this movie. As her, she was very good. Once again, the iconic music by Alan Silvestri is also back as well. Definitely beautiful music as well. And yeah. And the comedy is also done really well, very light-hearted, and it's what it's meant to be. It's absolutely brilliant. Really great. And I like how they did, like, a new genre in this movie where, as well as, of course, having the theme of sci-fi, I like how they introduced Wild West, which was really cool. So, yeah, I like how they included the Wild West genre in this movie. I thought they did it really well, as well. It was very good. And I think, as well, this movie also perfectly closed the story as well. The final part of the movie perfectly closed the trilogy, and it did it so well. Like, it concluded the whole story on a very beautiful way, because Marty and Doc, of course, returned to the future, of course, and back to the present day, and yeah, and it was done so well, very heartwarming as well. And Marty reunited with Jennifer as well, and Elizabeth Shue reprised her role as well, and yeah, and as well as that as well, Marty's parents also returned as well, but yeah. I think one of my qualities is that they and Jennifer were both underused. I didn't really like how they were underused, but nonetheless, though, I can understand, because this movie wasn't focusing on them. It was focusing on, the Wild West part of the story, really, where of course they didn't exist. So that makes sense in my opinion, and yeah. And also, other qualities I could also say is that the character who was introduced in part 2 called I think it's called Douglas Needles. I think he was also quite underused as well, but that's not much of a problem for me, really, because I didn't really know him that well. I couldn't really connect to him, so I didn't really mind that as well. But yeah, and yeah, so how do I rate out of 10, guys? Well, so like I said, not a bad movie in any form of fashion. No, absolutely not. In my opinion, it perfectly closed the story, and I will give this movie an 8 out of 10. That's how I'd rate it. So yeah. So how to rank the trilogy, guys? So number one best will be part 2, which I give 10 out of 10 to. Second place will be the first movie, which I give also 10 out of 10 to. And last place, and in the weakest place, will be part 3, which I give an 8 out of 10 to. Be perfect close to a franchise, and yeah. And this is a franchise, guys, that I really do not want to be rebooted in any form of fashion. if they reboot this franchise, I'll be absolutely furious. Because this is a timeless classic, and it can never be touched, in my opinion. No way. And no one can play Martin Dot better than Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. No one. There was even these rumours about, Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. playing Martin Doc in a remake, but thank God Tom Holland declined to play Marty. Thank God he declined. Thank God for that, because that would literally just ruin the legacy of the original. Thank God for that. And yeah, and of course, they also as well can't do a sequel to Part 3, like a Part 4, because obviously Michael J. Fox has retired from acting, so yeah. So thankfully we're not going to continue it, because Part 3, in my opinion, perfectly closed it, and yeah. And they can't continue it without Michael J. Fox, of course. Because, yeah, I think if they did Part 4 without Marty, I'd be furious, so yeah. But yeah, nonetheless, guys, this is me ranking about the trilogy from best to weakest. I love this trilogy very much. So yeah, and this was such a great trilogy to watch, guys. I really loved it, and yeah, a timeless classic which can still hold up to this day, in my opinion. Yeah, really great trilogy. Yeah, absolutely timeless, and yeah, and even of course with those the characters appearing in Lego Dimension, which is really awesome. I definitely love that, and yeah, So guys, this is me ranking the Back to the Future trilogy from best to weakest. So, drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, leave all comments how you guys would rank the trilogy. Look like you guys would rank the trilogy. Also, be sure to join Team Prime by pressing subscribe. Videos coming in the future. And where I'm going, I don't need roads.